Sick reference though, bro.
Oh, thanks, bud.
Dude, your references are out of control. Everyone knows that.
Hey,
dude.
thanks, man.
I finally have caught up with a couple of 2024 films that I have to say you were so right about. You could not have been more right. I have one word as notes for all three. Perfect.
Yes.
Alien,
So
Romulus,
yes.
perfect.
Hmm.
Heretic, perfect. Smile 2, when you said it was better than the first one, you aren't kidding. Perfect. It's hard to discuss them because I just don't have any notes. They were so good, so entertaining. So, if there's any chance in this world that anyone watching this has not seen any of those three, go on, get to it. Right after this episode, you've got your homework. I loved them.
Which one was your favorite, would you say, out of the three?
I think that Smile 2 did the most. I couldn't sleep. I had a really hard time going to sleep after that. So, for that reason, I have to say it was pretty special.
I did not expect that one to go so hard.
No, me either.
The first one didn't really scare me at all. And then that one actually shook me up a little bit.
I think that one of my favorite things about it is it's kind of a slow burn. It starts
Mhm.
off and you're kind of like, yeah, this is intriguing enough, but
Yeah.
you get like halfway through and you're like, oh, this is terrifying. And
It's
I
like a
was
slow
terrified.
spiral into
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what's real, you don't know what's not real. You're
Yeah.
fully in her perspective. I mean, I guess the first one too was in her perspective too, but I think the addition of her being a pop star
Mm-hmm.
just added to her stress level
Mm-hmm.
because she had so many eyes on her. And so many people were relying on her and stuff. And you where she's in this state where she's trying to come out looking out of a PR crisis, looking
Mm-hmm.
better,
Mm-hmm.
and she's
I don't want to give too much away, but when she is leaving the hospital or like the rehab
mhm,
center, my mind was in such a crazy place. Like you said, you don't know what's real.
mhm,
I watched the whole movie and at the very last second was like, oh, wait, what? It
mhm.
really blew me away with it wasn't predictable. And there's not a lot of horror movies these days that I would say that about. Except for these three. What a beautiful lineup. I was
Yeah,
shocked by all three of them.
it's a great year for
Um,
horror.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I think Heretic comes in as my number two
Mhm.
just because I was fully engaged the whole time. I was like sitting on the edge of my couch, like having a conversation with the characters, like I was there.
Yeah.
What an incredible villain. Gosh, I really don't want to spoil anything, but I really appreciate how long it took before there was any type of violence.
Right.
So long. I mean,
Very
most of the
dialogue,
movie.
very dialogue driven,
Yes.
and just the fear. The horror comes from just the situation they're in. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just violence and scary things popping out. It's
Mm-hmm.
they're in a situation that they can't get out of, and
Right.
uh, with this guy who's how do you navigate through the situation in his house and but I was sitting in the theater just oh, oh,
Yes, me too. Me
interesting.
too.
I wasn't scared. I wasn't. I mean, I was a little freaked. The suspense was there, but I was
Mm-hmm.
like just hanging on every word he was saying,
Mm-hmm.
because I agree with a lot of the things that he was saying.
Mm-hmm. Me
So it's
too.
interesting to have a villain speak so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really creative way to. I think they just they made this as a horror movie to kind of trick people into, you know, having some deep thoughts and criticisms of their own religions and faiths and what
Mm-hmm.
they might believe
Mm-hmm.
around them. Did I tell you the story
Totally.
about the guy I saw on the way into that movie?
No.
When I went and saw this, um, happened to be some guy walking ahead of me, into the theater, who was just bitching to his wife about some pastor at his church that pissed him off. Uh, that something about it being too woke or liberal, or
Oh,
uh, like claiming that Jesus would have been on the left or something. Like
okay.
he was just like ranting his
Mm-hmm.
his opinions about the whole situation. And I didn't know that he went and saw Heretic because,
What a
be-
surprise.
um, right as the movie was ending, like last few seconds, I got up and ran out of the theater because I had to pee really bad. And when I was coming back in, I just stopped and waited for my friend to come out. So I was seeing everybody walking out, and I saw that guy walking out with his face just
Yeah, like he'd seen Jesus himself.
like he was mind fucked by that. The look on
Yeah.
his face was just
Ah,
so I was so excited that I got to see what his face looked like on the way out of there.
what a perfect setup, too.
Threw him for a loop, that movie. He
Yeah.
was so sure of himself
Mm-hmm.
and his whatever he believes in his going in, and it didn't look like that was the case on his way out. Which I like movies that can have that type of effect.
Oh, me too. And I'm not shy to say it. I live in the gray. All of my beliefs are somewhere in the middle of everyone else's. I think everyone's got a tiny little bit and no one has all of it figured out.
Yeah,
So for me, the whole time our antagonist is going through his thoughts, I was ready to have that conversation. I'm not someone who is I'm not going to puppy guard my beliefs.
right,
I'm
right,
down
right.
to get
Yes,
into the nitty
and then
gritty. So
yes,
he'd bring up some stuff, and I'm like, that great point. Let's talk
mm,
about it. Like, let's
yep,
get into it. So I honestly had to keep reminding myself throughout that movie that like I am a small girl, and if I were put in a position where like I was being told I could leave, but I didn't
yeah,
feel like I could leave,
mhm.
that would be traumatizing because if I hadn't been reminding myself of that, when he broke out the board games, I'm like, let's freaking go. What a night. I can't wait. I want to party with this guy. It wasn't until so late in the movie that, the girls almost had to tell me how much danger we were
Yes,
in that moment because I was feeling so like, this is just a Saturday for
yeah.
me. Like, let's get into it. So I've really enjoyed that. I
And I
mean,
thought
down
that
to,
both of the sorry to interrupt, um,
no, please.
both of the female leads I thought did a phenomenal job.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Apparently, they were both raised in the Mormon Church themselves,
Oh.
so they were coming to these roles from a place of experience.
Yeah,
And
that's
I thought it was
interesting.
great that they, uh, in the media and on TV, it's very common and easy to mock the Mormon faith.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I like that they didn't really do that in here. They really showed them as humans. They didn't show them as all out idiots that are
Right.
gullible. Like they had their belief systems and but they weren't just total dummies or anything. They were
Yeah,
people with
totally.
actual thoughts, and I think that's important to recognize that yeah, that's
Mhm.
how most of these people are. They were just,
Mhm.
brought up in this belief system, and doesn't mean that they're, I don't know, not savvy. Like some of them were very savvy in some of those,
Yeah.
and very. Uh, it was like a game of chess watching them go back and forth, and because they
Mhm.
would throw him some curveballs as well,
Mhm.
which I really enjoyed. And before we stop talking about this movie, I want to do a quick spoiler section.
Oh, yes, please.
So spoiler alert if you haven't seen it.
Yes.
We'll edit on like a spoiler thing or something.
Yes, please.
Um, how did you interpret the ending?
Okay. Um
I feel like it leaves it open pretty much for
it
how you want to take it.
it was kind of open. What I liked about it is that it made me feel more right. Oh, I'm so bad. The
Hmm.
fact that she saw the butterfly,
Mhm.
or didn't spoke to how I feel about who God really is, and how the things that we're imagining are as real as they aren't.
Mhm.
And I felt like it fed right into what I was hoping to get out of it.
Yeah.
I was very pleased with her conviction and her beliefs, or both of the girls, their
Yeah.
conviction and their beliefs, and also their understanding of organized religion
Yeah.
being more about control than it
Mm.
is about God.
Mhm.
And um, how I love that she was saved. Like I said, spoiler, but I love that she was saved at the end, because I do feel like God is us in our own doing. I do feel like prayer is so powerful. There are scientific studies on how powerful positive thought or speak can be in our lives. So I thought all of those little pieces, with it still being kind of open ended, how the only like definitive thing that they gave us is that organized religion is meant to control people.
Right.
I just felt like, yeah, that lines up with exactly how I see the world. It was
Right.
perfect.
Exactly. I think that's how I felt about it too, for the most part, was um I felt like it almost reflected my journey with religion,
Hmm.
which was two things can be true.
Yes.
Uh,
Yep. Yes.
what he was correct about the way organized religion is and how it's about control and power uh, and all of those religions can be wrong
Yes.
while a God exists.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
just her at the end when she's acknowledging that he's right and she doesn't believe in prayer anymore, but she's going to do it anyways
Yep.
because
Hmm.
it makes her feel good. She
Hmm.
and then for the other sister who had supposedly been killed,
Hmm.
just comes back and saves her. It makes you
Hmm.
question, leaves you with that question of like, was she just slowly dying, or was that a miracle that just happened? Was that a resurrection
Yes.
that just happened?
Yes. Hmm.
And they don't say it clearly, so it's up for your own interpretation. But then for her to get out of there and while acknowledging everything that he said as truth, but still having her faith,
Hmm.
and be still seeing signs from God. The
Hmm.
butterfly is still
Hmm.
like, I just thought that was so beautiful, and
Me
it
too.
reflected uh, my own journey. But I've also seen other people online take it totally differently, and
Really?
it kind of in their mind reflect their relationship with religion. And I just found
Perfect.
it so interesting. Like
Uh huh.
um, people are gonna see it and like feel validated, and
Hmm.
whichever way they're going. And some people think that she died, that she actually when she got
Hmm.
out there and it was all that was she's dead, like she's in the afterlife. And there's just lots of different ways to interpret it. I thought it was so interesting and just I want more movies like that. I want this to be a
Me
topic of
too.
conversation for film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially for us, we've had this conversation plenty of weekends. I mean, we've
Yeah.
spent so much time on this exact
Hmm.
subject. And I thought of you the whole time I was watching it. And I kept wishing I could be in that room to differentiate religion and faith,
Hmm.
and how they can work together, of course, and
Yeah.
how they can work separate, and how they can feed into each other. The whole time I was just thrilled. And then obviously you add Radiohead Creep in anything, and I
That's
am
so good.
all in. I am
I love
all
that
about
analogy. The
it.
analogies he was
Hmm.
sharing was just like, "Give them to me." I love these
I
analogies. The board games, the like blowing my mind with like,
hmm
"Are you teaching a class? Let me sign up. I want to like."
I know. He would have had to work much harder to get me to go down in the basement, though, because I
Yes,
wouldn't have been ready to walk through the doors at all. I'm like, whip the games out. Let's talk about it. Let's read some books. I'd have been picking his brain. He'd have been really caught off guard by my
Yeah.
receptiveness to it all.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I liked it, because he really, he's in a cardigan for most of the movie. It's like
Mhm.
the least threatening kidnapping that I've ever witnessed. I would have
Probably my
kind of.
favorite role of his. I'm not really a big fan of Hugh Grant,
Mm-hmm.
but he impressed me in that movie.
Mm-hmm. I
Perfect.
thought so too.
Perfect balance of being like uh, charming and interesting, but also intimidating and
Uh-huh. And a little pompous. Anyone who
yes,
thinks that they've got it all figured out,
right.
for me, is so far off base anyway. So that
Yeah.
arrogance coming through and the kind of like cockiness that was coming along with it, um, was really impressive. I
Yeah.
thought I was sold. I believed that we were really it could have been like found footage, you know what I mean? It felt
Yeah.
like Blair Witch Project
Yeah.
almost for me, because it
Yeah.
felt so believable, so real, and so intriguing. So that movie, I will be rewatching and
Yeah.
sharing that with
Hmm.
anyone who is willing to have that kind of conversation.
Yes. I love the conversation it starts. So then, okay. So Alien Romulus. Quick thoughts on that.
That messed me up. That messed me up. Messed me up. I loved who the actor that played Andy. I actually didn't get his name, but he,
Stole the show.
again, so believable. I thought he was an android.
Mhm.
Like he was so good.
Hanson
And I
is
will,
so lovable. So
yes,
instantly you oh, don't hurt him. Don't like you just don't
yes.
you care about
Even after
immediately.
I found out he was an android, I still wanted to protect him. And
Yeah.
I will give the lead girl credit, because I didn't like her in Civil War because I didn't like nothing about it.
Yeah.
She actually was kind of the perfect cast
Yeah.
for like that nostalgia bait, bringing me back to like the original movie. There's this one moment when she's standing there holding the gun, and I'm like, I feel like I was seeing a
It's like
flashback, and I
yeah.
loved that they did that. It felt intentional, but not like heavy handed.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the creature, I'm talking about mess me up. I had to like get up and walk around just to try and burn the adrenaline that I was feeling from that
Yeah.
creation. And then to remind myself the practical effects, to remind myself like what I'm really seeing, that it's not just computer
Yeah.
generated
Yeah.
art. It made me feel so good. I was like proud. I was like
It
it felt
looks
like my
so
children
much better.
made
Like
that.
we need to
Mhm.
keep let's go back to
Mhm.
that because that it just
Mhm.
looks so much better. Um, so I'll hit you with a couple of the online complaints about the movie from people.
Please.
So the main complaints people have, they think that it was, and I'm not saying I don't agree with all these. They saying it was like a paint by numbers alien movie and predictable. They said there's
Okay.
too much fan service,
Okay.
and they hated the inclusion of the one kind of broken android because that's an android from the very first Alien movie.
Right.
They CGI'd that actor
Mhm.
um, with his family's permission. Um, so people were really hung up on those things, and in my opinion, I don't care about those. Like those aren't things that I need
Yes.
to get hung up on. The CGI was a little wonky with the guy,
A little bit.
and pretty sure if you watched it now, apparently they've updated it for
Oh,
home release and stuff
okay. Interesting.
because it wasn't finished when it was in theater. So okay, yeah, it didn't look that great. Everything else did. Everything else
Yeah.
looked amazing.
Amazing.
I'm not going to let that overshadow all the incredible work done on this movie. Also, I didn't think there was that much fan service. There was the one part
Well,
where he said, "Get away from her, you bitch." People got
yeah.
pissed off about him saying that line.
I laughed. I LOL. I'm talking about
Yeah, like,
burst out
yeah,
laughing.
like, yeah,
It tickled me.
yeah.
Uh,
I like it.
I I will give a little bit of credit to the criticism and say that like I think some of those points are right, but I don't have a problem with it, because I'm not watching an alien movie for the plot.
Mm,
I'm watching it so people get eaten or devoured or ripped
right.
apart by aliens. I want to see people die.
exactly. Like the
Aliens. That's the
people,
only reason I'm watching. I don't care about it. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like I
and the people saying that it's like a paint by numbers, the predictable. I'm like, uh, that's why I'm here. I want to see a chest burster. I
yes,
want to see
please.
the face huggers. I want
Yes,
to see the
please.
xenom. I want to see the little mouth. Like I want. I'm here for all those things, and they found ways to do those things in new and exciting ways. Um,
I agree. I mean, how
like
different can you make a space horror? Yes,
yeah,
we're worried about oxygen. Yes, we're worried about temperature. Yes, we're worried about crashing into planets. Like that is how all of them go. And I was still horrified. The part with that elevator, my heart
yeah,
was pounding.
mm,
It really got into my fear sector with
yeah,
like the gravity issue, and then like I've been afraid of elevators pretty much since Toy Story, what is it, 2,
yeah.
where they're like in the elevator.
Mhm.
Ever since then I've been so afraid of the idea of all of that weight just dropping, and
Mm.
so they did that perfectly. It's like I didn't
And
watch that
that was
movie
the new
so
creative thing. Like I just don't
yeah,
understand the.
totally.
This wasn't a copy to me. Like this was
Mm-mm.
something the same things happening in completely new and original ways.
Hmm.
The gravity thing was totally cool. The floating
Loved.
alien blood, the acid blood,
Loved that.
so
Hmm.
cool. And then the so people will complain about the like Prometheus and Alien Covenant going too convoluted and off track from what
Hmm.
Alien used to be, and then they
Hmm.
go back to what Alien used to be, and then they're complaining because it's not different and original. Doesn't make any sense. I was fully satisfied by the entire thing. It
I
it gave
loved
me
it.
everything I wanted. I
For
love.
me, that's like if you watched any of the new Screams and you were like, they, they were stabbing each other with knives, and I'm mad about that. It's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, what was we're here for? And I did feel like the rest of the script was, how do I say, it like wasn't too complex, but it was cheesy enough that any reboots or any fan service felt at home. You
Yeah.
know, like I knew that they were doing it to please me, and I was pleased. I
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
I was so entertained the whole time.
Yeah.
I watched it without distraction. All three of these movies, actually, no phone, no distraction, locked in,
Yeah.
and I really, really enjoyed them. I thought it was great.
Mhm.
Great. 10 out of 10 for me. I mean, I
Yeah.
just all three of them. They were so much fun. I really enjoyed it. I probably won't watch Smile 2 or Alien again for a while, but only because they were so traumatic. I really could
Yeah.
not sleep. I
Yeah.
was really
Yeah.
struggling.
Oh, one random fact, and then we'll move on. But
Please.
about Smile too.
Uh-huh.
Uh, you know her boyfriend that died.
Yes, yes. Yeah, in
You
the
know?
car.
Do you know who that is?
No, not at all.
Jack Nicholson's son.
Really?
Yeah. And you can totally see it
Is
in
a
his
fun
creepy
fact.
smile when he's walking up onto the stage while
Yeah.
she's uh like stumbling over her like speech or whatever.
Uh-huh. What a
You-
mess that was.
Mhm.
That
Oh,
those
that
couple of
stressed me.
minutes. Me
I was like,
too.
oh no.
I was like screaming. I like, we don't do cold reads. If someone
Mhm.
wants you to read a teleprompter, you don't ever just walk up there without a script first.
Mhm.
I wanted to rip my skin off. And the part with them in the car together, I was also feeling a bit of trauma
Yeah,
brewing around with them, like screaming at each other, high on drugs.
her performance
And
is so good.
I know, and I I didn't expect the crash to happen because of that. I
Mm.
was just thinking, oh, they're just high and driving, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't expecting it to be a thing where she's like, crazy. I'll
Mhm.
show you crazy.
Mhm.
Um, and crazy she was.
Yeah.
Her against herself in the cooler, award winning. I mean,
Yes.
seriously, amazing, amazing.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
thank you for those. You were so
Yes.
right about all your ratings.
I'm
Those were so
so
good.
glad you love them. I get
Hmm.
so excited when people watch the movies that I recommend. It's the
You
best
have the
feeling in the
best
world.
movie taste. That's why we do this. That's why we're here. Okay?